I was born the oldest, but Ryan was born the chosen. By the time I understood the rules, I'd already stopped playing. I grew up in Grand Rapids, the neighborhood with tired maples and porches where fathers stared into the dark like they were waiting on better years. We were 3 kids in a small house with a big story. Ryan could do no wrong. Claire and I figured that out early. She with silence, me with work. When I was 15, I wanted a car. Not a dream, just something that started. I stocked shelves at Meijer, bagged mulch, flipped mattresses in a warehouse that smelled like dust and cheap foam. I handed Dad my schedule like it might count for something. He nodded. Mom said, "Responsibility builds character." I bought a sun-faded Civic with a dented door and a stubborn starter. 2 months later, Ryan turned 16 and got a new sedan with a ribbon. "It's safer," Mom said. "We worry." I learned the language. Worry means gift when it's him, lecture when it's me. At graduation, I asked about tuition. "Community college first," Mom said. "You're smart. You'll figure it out." Ryan took a single business class 2 years later and called it entrepreneurship. When his taco truck dream went belly up in a winter nobody could have predicted, my parents invested in him by draining things meant for later. They called it faith. They called my criticism negativity. Claire saw it all and kept her head down. She'd squeeze my hand under the table when Mom bragged about Ryan's vision. "You good?" she'd whisper. I'd nod because nodding was cheaper than arguing. Dad stayed in Switzerland, polite, bland, present but absent where it mattered. He taught me to change oil but never stepped between unfair and me. There are men built like bridges and men built like traffic cones. Dad was bright, easy to go around. I left for Chicago like a man escaping a fire he didn't start. A scholarship was patched the first year. The rest I built with code and nights that bled into mornings. I learned to speak in systems and deliver on deadlines. At 25, I got poached by a firm that paid like it meant it. By 32, I was a senior architect with a corner view and a key fob that opened doors while other men waited outside. I ate alone often and didn't mind. Peace is loud when you've only known the other thing. Mom called sometimes, mostly to update me on Ryan's latest. The latest was always a rescue disguised as belief. "He just needs one break," she'd say. I'd stare at the skyline and trace the glass lines with my thumb. "We all needed one," I'd say. She'd change the subject. On holidays, I'd drive home and find Ryan installed like a prince who'd mislaid his crown. He'd make jokes about my shirts, corporate funeral wear, and ask if my job was just meetings. When I brought good whiskey, he drank it first. When I fixed Dad's router, he complained the Wi-Fi still lagged. It was a cycle. I arrived. Mom preened over him. Dad smiled. Claire and I traded looks, and I left before dessert because sugar made me say things I couldn't walk back. Every man has a pressure valve. Mine was routine. Lift at 6. Code with coffee. Run after dark along the lake with headphones and a playlist that sounded like engine noise. I dated quietly and ended things clean. I kept my apartment sharp. Spare furniture, tight closet, knives that stayed sharp because I respected them. It wasn't loneliness. It was controlled. Success invites family in 2 ways, pride and problem. Pride makes them brag to neighbors about our son in Chicago. The problem makes them call when rent is late or a car gets keyed. With me, they preferred pride. With Ryan, the problem never came with shame. Mom would say he's sensitive. Like that bought him extra lives. On my 32nd birthday, I looked around my high-rise and counted wins. Money in the bank, a team that listened, a quiet phone. I told myself I was done paying attention to a house I no longer lived in. Then Claire called. "Have you ever thought about coming back?" she asked. "Your work's remote. Dad's getting stiff. I could use a brother nearby who doesn't treat a plan like a theory." I didn't answer right away. I watched a boat crawl down the river under the bridge, slow and certain. "Maybe," I said. "Maybe I'm ready." I told myself it wasn't about them. It was about being near Claire, about grabbing a beer with Derek, about not burning a tank of gas to see the 2 people who never asked if I slept enough. I told myself I was bringing the life I built, not begging for theirs. That's how men lie to themselves, not with big stories but with small reasonable ones. The last time I visited before the move, Mom hugged me like I'd finally come to my senses. "Your room is always your room," she said. What she meant, "Our orbit still owns you." I smiled. "I don't do twin beds anymore," I said. Dad laughed, quick and guilty. Ryan tossed me the keys to his new lease and asked if I wanted to feel real power. I handed them back. "I already do," I said. Leaving Chicago felt less like retreat and more like a tactical advance. I wasn't going home to be approved. I was going home to be seen, not by them, by me. You can't measure strength in a mirror you bought yourself. Sometimes you go back to stand in front of the old one and refuse to flinch. Favoritism doesn't fade. It hardens. It calcifies in expectations and spreads through the veins of a family until everyone thinks limping is how you're supposed to walk. I built new muscle. I walked straight, and I knew, looking at the highway sign for Grand Rapids, that the thing I'd left wasn't finished with me. That was fine. Neither was I. 10 years in Chicago taught me peace, but not immunity. Family doesn't knock. It drifts back in like a smell you thought you aired out. Moving back wasn't emotional. It was math. Remote job, low cost of living, a sister who still answered calls. I rented a place downtown. Brick loft, high ceilings, no clutter. I told myself it was temporary, a pit stop between projects. But men like me don't move without purpose. Some part of me wanted to stand on my old streets and not feel small anymore. Claire was first to visit. She brought Thai food and the same dry humor that kept me sane as a kid. "Welcome back to the circus," she said, kicking off her shoes. Ryan's still unemployed adjacent. Mom's still auditioning for Best Supporting Enabler, and Dad's practicing selective hearing. I laughed, felt earned. We started grabbing drinks after her shifts, two siblings comparing scars. She'd tell stories about her patients, the way they fight for life while our mother fights for attention. I'd tell her about code deployments and how silence at work was the same as respect. She liked that. "You built something real," she said one night, sipping her beer. "They can't touch that." "Maybe not," I said. "But they'll try." Ryan didn't call for weeks. When he did, it was performative. "Heard you're back," he said, like I was trespassing. "Guess Chicago ran out of skyscrapers." "Guess so," I said. "How's the job hunt?" "Between things," he said. "Investing in ideas." Ideas meaning failure in slow motion. Mom, on the other hand, called too much. She'd drop comments like, "You should talk to your brother more," or "He looks up to you, you know?" I'd bite my tongue. She was still running PR for her favorite client. Dad stayed quiet. I got a few "proud of you" son texts. Small words from a man who'd never known how to give them. Derek came by on a Saturday. Same guy from high school, broad shoulders, hands rough from work. He'd become a contractor, married, and had 2 kids. When he saw my apartment, he laughed. "You finally live like an adult. Remember when your mom said computers weren't a real career?" "Yeah," I said. "Guess she prefers bankruptcy with seasoning." He smirked. "Are you still chasing their approval?" I didn't answer right away. Derek poured whiskey, the cheap kind that burns honesty. "You can't win a game when the ref's their mother," he said. "You left for a reason." "I'm not chasing," I said. "I just want them to know I didn't need them to make it." He nodded. "That's still chasing, brother. You just changed the finish line." That one stuck. The weeks rolled on. I settled into work, clean projects, good pay, no commute. Claire and I got close again, laughing at the same old family theater. Ryan was the headliner, Mom the director, Dad the silent investor. Thanksgiving was my first real test. I walked into the house with a bottle of rye and a calm heart. Ryan showed up late, dressed like a startup CEO with no company. Mom practically lit up. "Ryan's thinking about launching another business," she said. "A subscription box for failure," Claire muttered. Mom shot her a look sharp enough to cut the pie. Ryan smirked. "Jealousy's not a good color, Claire." I smiled. "Neither is debt." Mom gasped like I'd cursed at church. Dad said nothing, fork halfway to his mouth. Ryan glared, then changed the subject to crypto like it was still 2021. After dinner, Claire and I cleaned up while Mom fussed over Ryan's leftovers. She looked at me, soap on her hands. "Do you ever get tired of being an adult?" "All the time," I said. "Then stop trying to prove anything. Just live." I wanted to, but she knew the truth. Men who grow up fighting for fairness don't ever stop measuring. Even if the scoreboard doesn't exist, we still count. Later that night, I sat on my balcony, bourbon in hand, looking out at the quiet city lights. The air smelled like pine and regret. I thought about Derek's words, about how success isn't freedom if you're still explaining it to ghosts. Maybe you can't outrun family gravity, but maybe you can build enough muscle to walk through it without falling back into orbit. I wasn't back to belong. I was back to see if I could stay standing. She was the first woman I ever thought my family might actually like. Turns out they already knew her, just not the way I hoped. By December, things looked stable. Work was good. The gym cleared my head, and Allison had become the quiet center in my life. We met at a tech mixer. She in marketing, me in software, both allergic to small talk but fluent in sarcasm. She was sharp, funny, and didn't flinch when I told her my family was complicated. When I invited her to Christmas, she hesitated. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" "Probably not," I said. "But it's time." The drive to my parents' house was silent in the way comfort should be. Her hand in mine, windshield wipers keeping time. I told her the basics. Mom adored Ryan, Claire was my sanity, Dad was background noise. She smiled. "Got it. I'll play nice." Mom answered the door like she was hosting a royal visit. "So this is Allison," she said, giving her that tight, evaluating smile mother's reserve for inspection. Allison handled it like a pro, firm handshake, polite compliment, no weakness shown. Dinner started smoothly. Claire and Allison hit it off, talking work and wine. Dad asked about Chicago, pretending curiosity he'd never had before. Ryan was late, of course, but that was his signature move. He came in halfway through the meal, unshaven and already grinning. "Hope you saved me some turkey," he said, dropping his jacket on a chair. Then he saw her. The grin collapsed. "No way," he muttered. Allison turned, polite smile frozen. "Ryan." Mom's fork clinked against her plate. "You two know each other?" Ryan laughed once, a short, sharp sound. "Know each other? Yeah, you could say that. We went out, a few times?" Allison nodded, controlled. 3 dates. 2 years ago. I blocked you after the 4th text in one night. The air went dead. Claire looked at me, then at Mom. Mom looked at Ryan like he'd been wronged. "You never mentioned that," she said to him, voice soft, pity already dripping. "Didn't think I had to," he said, staring at me. "Guess my brother didn't either." I kept my tone level. "Didn't know it was you, Ryan." She told me about some clingy guy named Ryan from Grand Rapids. Didn't think it was my Ryan. That should have been the end of it. But Ryan wasn't built to let go. He pushed his chair back hard enough to shake the table. "You always do this, man. Always take what's mine." Mom gasped like he'd confessed a murder. "Ryan, please." "No, let him hear it," he said. "You couldn't stand me having something first, could you?" Allison's voice cut clean through. "We went out 3 times. You don't own people." Ryan's face went red. "You wouldn't understand," he said to me. "You've always had it easy." That one almost made me laugh. Easy. Working 3 jobs in college, living off ramen while he burned through Mom's savings, easy. Claire stood. "We're done here." But Mom wasn't. "You didn't have to humiliate your brother like this," she said to me, as if I'd planned the whole thing. I set my fork down, looked her dead in the eye. "You think I knew? You think I'd bring someone here just to piss him off?" Her lips tightened. "Intentions don't matter. You knew it would hurt him." There it was, the bias, raw and unfiltered. Ryan breaks, and I'm the hammer. Allison touched my arm. "Let's go." We left in silence, cold air hitting hard. In the car, she finally spoke. "So, that's the family." "Yeah," I said. "That's the family." She took my hand. "You handled it better than I would have." I've had practice. The drive back was quieter than before. I wasn't angry, just hollow. Some things don't surprise you. They confirm what you already knew. When we pulled into her apartment garage, she leaned against the seat, staring ahead. Have you ever thought about cutting them off completely? I thought about Claire, about Dad's silence, about the old house where love was rationed by favoritism. Yeah, I said, every day. But I keep thinking maybe next time will be different. She looked at me then, eyes steady. It won't be. She was right. That night I realized something I hadn't said out loud. You can grow up, move out, earn your own peace, but your family still knows where the bruises are. They'll press them just to make sure they still work. And mine did. I proposed to the woman I loved in front of everyone who ever doubted me. For dessert, my brother tried to take her for himself. 15 months after that Christmas disaster, things had settled, or so it looked. Allison and I got engaged privately first. Just us, no audience, no noise. She said yes with tears, steady eyes, and a hand that didn't shake. I wanted to keep it quiet. She wanted to celebrate. Against my better judgment, I agreed to one big dinner. Family, close friends, a few colleagues, a statement that we'd made it through the storm. The restaurant was small, dim-lit, jazz humming low. I'd booked the back room, candles on every table. When I dropped to one knee, she laughed, covered her mouth, then said yes loud enough to draw applause. It was perfect, clean, honest, ours. Then Ryan stood up and left. No words, no congratulations, just the scrape of his chair and the sound of Mom calling after him like he'd fallen off a cliff. People whispered. I brushed it off, smiling through the noise. But something cracked in that silence. 2 months later, Ryan reached out, texted me and Allison both. Dinner this weekend? I want to make peace. She hesitated. Do we go? I thought about ignoring it, but the logical part of me, the part that still believed in closure, said yes. We'll go, I told her. Let's see what peace looks like in his world. The restaurant was newer, louder. Ryan was already there, dressed up, sweating through his shirt, jittery but smiling. Mom and Dad were at the far end of the table, like it was a family summit. Claire sat tight, arms crossed. I should have turned around then. We ordered drinks, made light conversation. He kept saying how happy he was for us, how he'd been thinking a lot about everything. He even apologized, the closest he'd ever come. I acted out, he said. You didn't deserve that. I nodded. Thanks. Then dessert came. A molten chocolate cake, the kind Mom used to burn every Christmas. He stood up again. For a second, I thought he was leaving. Then he dropped to one knee, in front of Allison. The room froze. Allison, he said, voice shaking. I made mistakes, but I know what real love looks like now. You deserve someone who truly sees you, and I'll spend my life proving I can be that man. Someone gasped. Mom clapped her hands over her mouth. Allison's face went blank. Shock painted across it. Ryan, she said. What the hell are you doing? I stood. Get up. He looked at me, smiling, manic, pleading. You don't love her like I do. Ryan, I said again, voice low. Get up. He didn't. The sound of my fist hitting his jaw was louder than I expected. A clean, solid crack. He went down hard. The table tipping, glasses shattering, candles falling. People screamed. Mom rushed forward, not to me, but to him. You animal, she cried, shoving me back. He's your brother. Not anymore, I said. Allison pulled me out of there. Claire followed, shouting something about calling the cops before things got worse. We walked fast, her hand in mine, both shaking. Outside, the night was cold, brutal. She stopped on the sidewalk, turned to me. What planet is your family from? I looked down the street. Lights, sirens in the distance, the city pulsing like a wound. The one I escaped from, I said. Back home, neither of us talked for a while. She sat on the couch, hands clasped tight. I poured 2 drinks and handed her one. You okay? She nodded. I should be asking you that. I'm fine, I said. And for once I meant it. It wasn't guilt. It was a relief. 10 years of controlled restraint finally finding a voice through a single punch. I didn't regret it. Some truths can't be spoken softly. Mom called the next day. I didn't answer. The voicemail was predictable. You ruined everything. He was trying to make peace. Peace doesn't look like proposals at gunpoint. I sat with that thought, staring at the bruises on my knuckles, and realized something simple. Ryan didn't love Allison. He envied her choice the same way Mom envied my distance. Obsession wears love's mask. And that night I tore it off. Mom said I should apologize for overreacting. I told her calmly that she'd raised the wrong man for that kind of request. The fallout hit like slow poison. Mom called daily, each voicemail some version of guilt dressed as advice. He's fragile, you know that. Families forgive. You embarrassed all of us. I deleted them without listening to the end. When she finally reached me live, her voice was sharp, the old edge back. You're going to apologize, she said. For what? For attacking your brother. He proposed to my fiancé, Mom. He's emotional. So am I. She sighed. You've always been dramatic. I almost laughed. No, I said. I've just had better aim. That was when she said it, the line that ended everything. If you don't make this right, I won't come to your wedding. I took a breath, let it sit. That's your decision, I said. Not my problem. The silence after that felt like victory, until the knock on my door 3 days later. Allison opened it. Mom pushed her way in. She was crying, half apologizing, half scolding, the way she always did when she wanted control back. I can't believe you're throwing this family away over a punch, she said. You mean over decades? I corrected. Don't be cruel, she said. He looks up to you. He looks down on everyone, Allison said. Mom turned to her, eyes narrowing. You stay out of this. She's already in it, I said. You made sure of that. Something snapped in her face. That combination of rage and righteousness I'd seen since childhood. She stepped forward, finger raised like I was still 16. You've changed, she said. You think money makes you better? No, I said. Boundaries do. She lunged, not at me, at Allison, grabbed her by the hair, screaming something about stealing her sons. Allison yelled, trying to pull free. I reacted before thinking. Yanked Mom off her, shoved her back against the wall, hard enough to stop her but not hurt her. She stared at me, stunned. You'd hurt your own mother? No, I said. I'm stopping her. I locked the door behind her as she left, still shouting down the hall. We called the police that night, not to press charges yet, just to document it. The officer took notes, asked if she'd been violent before. I said, not physically, just everything else. Allison sat beside me, hand shaking in mine. This can't keep happening, she said. It won't, I told her. The next morning, we filed for a restraining order. My lawyer friend walked me through the paperwork, quiet and thorough. When I handed in the signed forms, it didn't feel like rebellion. Felt like the truth. That evening, I poured a drink, stared at my reflection, and said the words out loud. I'm done. Not angry, not broken, just done. Mom wasn't protecting anyone anymore. Not her family, not herself. She was protecting the myth that her favorite boy could do no wrong. But that myth ended the second she laid hands on the woman I love. That was the night I stopped being her son and started being the man she couldn't manipulate. After the violence, I wanted distance. What I found instead was proof that the favoritism I grew up with had numbers behind it, and they didn't lie. Silence followed the restraining order. Mom vanished into denial. Dad stopped calling, and Ryan posted cryptic quotes about loyalty on Facebook. I ignored them. Allison healed, both of us counting down the days until the wedding without family interference. Then Claire called. Her voice had that tone, part anger, part disbelief. You need to see something, she said, about Grandpa's trust. Our grandfather had left a sizable estate, investments, property, cash. We were supposed to get equal shares when we turned 30. I hadn't thought about it in years. I had my own money now, But Claire had been reviewing her statements for taxes and found irregularities. Ryan's name keeps showing up on distributions that were supposed to be split 3 ways, she said. Do you ever get any notices? No, I said. Just quarterly summaries. Small stuff. Then you need to check. I did. Pulled old statements, matched signatures, ran totals. The math didn't lie. Nearly $500,000 meant for me had gone missing over a decade. The pattern was clean, methodical. Funds siphoned from my account into Ryan's business ventures, car leases, even personal expenses. The kicker, the statements were forged. My signature, copied and pasted. Dad's, Mom's, both are complicated. I sat there at my desk, jaw tight, hand steady. I didn't shout, didn't throw anything, just stared at the numbers. Allison walked in. What is it? Proof, I said, of everything I've always known. That night, Claire came over with a bottle of bourbon and her own file folder. She'd traced deposits into Ryan's accounts, marked every one with dates. They used Grandpa's trust like their personal piggy bank, she said. And they signed your name. Mom, I asked. Both of them. I took a long sip, felt the burn. We go legal, I said. Claire nodded. I already talked to a lawyer. He said it's a breach of fiduciary duty, open and shut. We met with the attorney the next day. He was calm, clinical, already piecing the strategy. They're trustees, he said. You're beneficiaries. They stole from you. It's not just civil. It's potentially criminal. Then we go all the way, I said. He smiled slightly. You want to make this public? I want it to be real, I said. I want them to feel it. Within weeks, the filings were official. The suit hit the public record, Langford versus Langford et al. News spread fast in their social circle. Their bank accounts froze, their credit lines collapsed, their reputation bled out. Mom called once, voice trembling. How could you do this to us? I didn't, I said. You did. Ryan texted me too, one line, you're destroying the family. I replied, no, just the lie you lived on. Allison stood by me through every deposition, every document exchange. She read every page, steady as stone. When I wavered, she'd remind me, they started this when they decided fairness didn't apply to you. The case stretched for months, lawyers, auditors, statements under oath. Dad tried to play innocent until the evidence cornered him. His voice broke during one hearing. Your mother just wanted to help Ryan. I looked at him and said, she helped him steal. When it finally ended, there wasn't a courtroom explosion or a cinematic moment. Just signatures, settlements, and consequences. They lost their house first, then the boat, then the respect of every friend who'd once envied them. For once, Ryan had to stand on his own, no bailouts, no safety net. Mom disappeared from social circles. Dad stopped pretending ignorance. Claire got her share. I got mine. The money wasn't the victory. It was the proof. Favoritism had always been emotional. Now it was financial, quantifiable, undeniable. And for the first time, the truth didn't just belong to me. It belonged to the record. The lawsuit ended the way truth usually does. Not loud, just final. They sold everything to pay what they owed. And for once, the golden boy had to sweat for his own survival. The settlement came through on a Tuesday morning, anticlimactic, clinical. My attorney called, said the accounts were cleared, the transfers authorized. $400,000 wired into my account. The number didn't thrill me. It just sat there, like evidence preserved. Mom and Dad had sold the house. The boat was gone, their memberships revoked. Country club friends vanished the moment the scandal went public. I heard whispers from Claire that Mom still blamed vindictive forces, meaning me. Dad was in therapy now, apparently reflecting. Translation, admitting things too late. Ryan's share was conditional, frozen until he could hold a steady job for 12 consecutive months. For the first time in his life, he had to clock in, sweat, and earn. Claire sent me a photo once. Ryan in a reflective vest, loading pallets behind a hardware store. He's learning, she said. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. Justice isn't joy. It's gravity. It just puts things back where they belong. Allison and I scaled back our wedding. Smaller guest list, no spectacle, no speeches about family unity. We got married in a small garden outside the courthouse, her in a simple dress, me in a gray suit that fit like resolve. Claire was there, Derek too. No drama, just vows, rings, and peace that didn't need witnesses. We took the settlement money and booked a 6-week honeymoon through New Zealand. No phones, no news, no reminders. We hiked trails that smelled like rain and pine, climbed ridges that swallowed sound. Some mornings we didn't talk at all. Silence was the first luxury I'd ever earned. On the last night of the trip, we sat on a beach near Wanaka, stars hanging low like sparks. Allison leaned into me. "Have you ever thought about them?" she asked. "Every day," I said. "Just not the same way." "How's that?" "I used to wonder how to fix it," I said. "Now I just hope they face what they built." She nodded. "Closure's overrated anyway." "Yeah," I said. "But peace, that's something else." When we got back, the city felt lighter. Claire had moved on, taking travel nursing assignments out west. Dad sent an email short, no excuses. "I'm sorry. You were right. I should have protected all of you, not just him." It wasn't much, but it was real. I replied with one line, "Then start now." Mom stayed silent. Ryan, surprisingly, didn't. He sent a message, no venom, no sarcasm. "Got a job. 3 weeks in. Gonna make it to 12. I stared at the screen for a long time. Replied simply, "Good. Keep going." Justice had stripped us down to something simple, the bare minimum of truth. For once, I wasn't angry. I wasn't proud either. Just done. We left town a few months later for a weekend drive. Windows down, her hair whipping in the wind, the city shrinking behind us. She reached over, touched my hand. "Feels like peace," she said. "It is," I said. "Not the kind that needs applause, just the kind that finally stays." We moved south to start fresh. For the first time in my life, my mother couldn't reach me, and that silence was worth more than the inheritance. Atlanta felt like clean air after years of breathing smoke. Bigger skies, slower people, less noise. Allison found a marketing gig with a small agency. I kept my remote job and built a home office that overlooked pine trees instead of skyscrapers. The house was modest. 2 stories, wraparound porch, no ghosts. We unpacked slowly. No rush. Every box we opened was a reminder. We owned everything in it, no strings attached. Claire visited once before heading west for another assignment. She hugged me hard and whispered, "You did it. You got free." "Not free," I said. "Just far enough." She smiled. "Same thing. Dad started therapy full-time after the settlement. He called a few months in, not for forgiveness, just to talk. His voice sounded lighter, tired but honest. "Your mother still won't face it," he said. "But I can't fix her anymore." "You were never supposed to," I told him. Ryan surprised me next. He'd taken a retail job, warehouse supervisor, night shifts. Send me a photo in his work vest, sweat on his face, tired but upright. A week later, a letter arrived with a $500 check inside. The note read, "First payment toward what I owe. Don't send it back." It wasn't about the money. It was about accountability. I left it on my desk, uncashed. Proof that the man was at least trying to exist without handouts. Mom, though, she stayed locked in her own story. Guilt in one hand, denial in the other. Every few weeks I'd get an email, "Families forgive. You'll regret cutting ties. Ryan's trying. Why can't you?" I did what any mother would do. I didn't reply. Deleting them felt cleaner than answering. You can't reason with someone who still thinks love means control. Allison and I built new habits. Morning runs, Sunday drives, dinner on the porch with music low. Sometimes Derek would visit from Michigan. Same laugh, same brutal honesty. He'd sip beer, look around, and say, "Best part of this house? Your mom can't show up unannounced." Allison laughed every time. "She's not wrong," she'd say. He wasn't. The distance wasn't escape. It was calm. The kind that comes after you stop explaining yourself to people who never listened. One night I sat outside alone. The air was warm, quiet, and heavy with crickets. I thought about everything, the lawsuit, the fight, the years of chasing fairness like it was oxygen. Then I realized something simple. Peace doesn't announce itself. It just replaces the noise one day, and you don't even notice until you breathe easier. Atlanta wasn't home because it was new. It was home because it was mine. It all started with a proposal meant to humiliate me. The funny thing is, that moment built the man I was supposed to be all along. Looking back, I see the pattern clear as glass. Every fight, every silence, every small injustice was just gravity pulling me toward one moment. That proposal, that explosion, that split. It wasn't chaos. It was clarity. If Ryan hadn't kneeled in front of Allison, maybe I'd still be pretending. Maybe I'd still be the dutiful son trying to earn applause from people who clapped for the wrong reasons. That night didn't ruin me, freed me. The aftermath stripped everything false. My mother's mask of devotion, my father's cowardice, Ryan's excuses, even my own need for their approval. Truth didn't heal us. It amputated what was rotten. Claire still checks in. Dad's therapy is helping. Ryan works, pays his bills, and texts sometimes without venom. Small things, real things, progress without parade. Mom's still lost in her story, writing guilt into every line, blaming everyone but herself. I used to want her to understand. Now I just hope she sleeps. I don't hate them anymore. Hate takes energy, and I've spent enough. Peace didn't come from the settlement or the move or the silence. It came from finally letting go of the scoreboard, from realizing I didn't need revenge, just distance and the discipline to keep it. Allison and I still talk about Michigan sometimes. She'll ask if I miss it. I tell her the truth. I miss the idea of it, not the reality. We sit on the porch most nights, wine or whiskey between us, music low. Sometimes we don't talk at all. The quiet used to feel foreign. Now it feels like ownership. Some families heal by reunion. Ours healed by distance. And I've never felt lighter.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.